AT&T.
Samsung Galaxy S3, designed for humans.
In recent years, the Frutiger Aero aesthetic has experienced a resurgence, as many in Gen Z reminisce about simpler times. But did you know that there are many more aesthetics related to or sharing similarities with Frutiger Aero that you may have seen many times in the past? Today, let's dive into them and see how they relate to each other right after the intro.
It's over 9,000!
He's slamming your window.
Chocolate rain.
2010s Internet. Do you remember the way the internet used to look before the engagement-based algorithms meant to keep you hooked to your screen, when the internet was a common ground for human creativity and whatever on earth this stuff was? This is known as the 2010s internet aesthetic, that is used as an umbrella term to describe the aesthetic that was created by the internet from 2007 to 2019. The 2010s internet aesthetic utilizes Frutiger Aero and Frutiger Metro, with its heavy focus on computers from the 2010s, which used Metro and Aero designs, Windows 8 and Vista respectively, in their user interfaces. This aesthetic featured 2010s internet memes such as 9cat, Awesome Face, MLP, Michael Rosen, MLGs, and YTP memes. This aesthetic perfectly represents a majority of what I feel nostalgic for, which is why I love it so much. The 2010s internet aesthetic was seen in, well, the internet of the 2010s. Just looking around YouTube and just the internet's whole vibe in general, you could see this aesthetic everywhere. It is a great reminder of peak social media, flash games, troll faces, memes, and peak Frutiger Aero technology. Abstract tech. The next aesthetic, also relating to technology in the 2010s, is abstract tech. This was an aesthetic that was meant to put an abstract twist on technology with a high-tech, futuristic, sci-fi looking aesthetic. Abstract tech shares its optimistic view of the future of tech and its blue shades with Frutiger Aero. You could see abstract tech in many places from the 2000s and 2010s, but it was most famously shown in the video games Deus Ex, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and the Matrix film series. Chromecore. Now let's jump back a bit to the Y2K vision of futuristic tech, Chromecore. This was an aesthetic focusing on 2000s high-end technology that had a silver metallic look to it. Chromecore's focus on futuristic tech and shiny objects puts it in a similar place as Frutiger Aero, as well as abstract tech. Chromecore came to light way before Frutiger Aero. I'm talking like the late 90s. It would, however, end up fading out due to the rise in Frutiger Aero. This aesthetic didn't, however, fade out without leaving its mark, and was widely seen in web design of the time, the DS, the Razor, those silver PS2s, the GameCube, and many, many more tech products.
Powered by Verizon.
Dark Aero. Now this next one is one of my favorite subgenres of Frutiger Aero, if not my absolute favorite. Frutiger Eco, best imagined as Frutiger Aero but in dark mode. Dark Aero, or Frutiger Eco, or Modern Aero, yeah, it has quite a few nicknames, is kind of a middle ground between Frutiger Aero and skeuomorphism, which might not make sense at first, but it'll make more sense when you notice how skeuomorphism has some darker elements to it, like you can see it in iOS 6 or older versions of Android. Frutiger Eco tends to keep Frutiger Aero's glass textures and flourishes while blending in skeuomorphism's darker color palettes that you could see in those earlier operating systems and designs. This style was generally used in advertisements and promotional media for high-end modern tech and enterprise-oriented products. This is shown on the focus on darker colors with brighter ones surrounding the product of focus. However, Frutiger Eco didn't end up going mainstream, as the more vibrant and colorful Frutiger Aero and Metro aesthetics tended to attract a wider audience of people. As per examples of Dark Aero in use, you can see in later builds of Windows Longhorn, this iPod Nano poster from the 2000s, this PS3 poster here, and many elements of Android's Holo design that was used between 2011 and 2014. DORFic. Now let's shift from a darker aesthetic to a brighter one. DORFic, or Sunshine Polypunk, or polysunk, was an abstract art style aesthetic with more minimalist imagery. DORFic uses the corporate elements of Frutiger Eco, as well as some of the Vectorflourishes seen in Frutiger Metro, making this more of a loosely related aesthetic. Going into more depth now, DORFic tends to have a heavy focus on the color orange, and has a much more minimalist approach to the future. This shows in the many pieces of marketing and corporate media that was produced using the aesthetic, most famously the Sony Ericsson Walkman phone line's promotional materials. Electropop 08. The Sony Ericsson Walkman line was known for music. You know what else is known for music? Electropop 08, or recession pop. I mean, like, not in the same way, but both have to do with music, so we'll go with it. This was more of a musical aesthetic related to Frutiger Aero through Frutiger Metro. Now you might be thinking, this aesthetic seems too much like a going to a club on a Friday night kind of thing, which seems completely unrelated to Frutiger Aero. However, I promise you there are much more connections, because both aesthetics use bloom and Vectorflourish and some glossy elements, at least in their respective visual aspects they did. Electropop arose in the mid-2000s in music and became a huge part of the pop music scene in the early 2010s, with many artists such as Lady Gaga, Tayo Cruz, LaRue, and Tune1 utilizing the aesthetic in their music and album artwork. Frutiger Eco. Let's move from a musical aesthetic to an environmentally friendly, natural one. How will I transition between them smoothly, you may ask? Well, I just did. Frutiger Eco. This is a subgenre of Frutiger Aero, and many of the Frutiger Aero images that you've seen online are actually Frutiger Eco, with a focus on eco-friendliness and harmony with nature. This has many of the aesthetic attributes of Frutiger Aero, such as the glossy textures, humanism, bokeh, flourishes, and bubbles. But why does Frutiger Eco exist? It's because we love gatekeeping and labeling everything. It's because of a rise in awareness of environmental problems, like pollution and global warming. This aesthetic was meant to represent a more ideal way of living with tech and nature in harmony. This shows with how most uses of Frutiger Eco are in corporate branding, with renewable corporate futurism being a subgenre of Frutiger Eco. Frutiger Metro. Now that we're done with harmony and peace with the environment, we're going to the crazy, abstract, fun party zone. That's right, Frutiger Metro. This is one of, if not the most famous aesthetics we're going to talk about today. This is an aesthetic that was best known for its abstract patterns, silhouettes, and heavy focus on rave, I think is the best way to describe it, music. Frutiger Metro uses colors, humanism, and bokeh, kind of like Frutiger Aero did, just with a slightly more let loose, go crazy kind of vibe to it. Frutiger Metro was named after the Metro UI of Windows 8, but doesn't exactly reflect it. See, Frutiger Metro tends to be much more elaborate and maximalist, using more vector elements. This aesthetic is so well documented and has so many of its own subgenres that I could make a whole video about it. Let me know if you'd like to see that. Now going back to Frutiger Metro, it was seen everywhere from Xbox dashboards from the early 2010s, to the PS4, to Android KitKat, Little Big Planet, Mario Kart 8, and the iDog. You can also see many of its elements reflected in the user interface of the Zune or the Windows Phone. Yeah, remember those? Four colors. Sharing the same color patterns as Frutiger Metro, just without all the flashiness and bold abstract visuals, is four colors. This was an aesthetic that, as the name suggests, focused on four main colors: electric lime, sky blue, hot pink, and neon orange. The four colors this aesthetic is known for are used quite a lot in Frutiger Aero and Frutiger Metro, which is how they relate. This aesthetic traces its roots back to the early 2000s, with Apple's iPod commercials with the dancing silhouettes. The backgrounds generally used the four colors that this aesthetic focuses on. The four colors aesthetic was overall prevalent in Apple's older products, such as the iPod Nano and iPad smart covers, along with some older Nokia phones. This could also be seen in those BlendJet blenders from a few years back. Hexatron. While those BlendJet blenders may have looked high-tech and cool, they really weren't. Nothing looks cooler and more advanced than Hexatron. This was an aesthetic characterized by neon blue, black, and white colors, with a focus on advanced futuristic technology. The neon blue, the optimistic futuristic looks, all make Hexatron similar to Frutiger Aero, but with its own unique high-tech twist. This aesthetic was prominent during the 2010s and was the spiritual successor to Frutiger Aero, as it retained that hopeful, futuristic look and the advanced technology focus of Frutiger Aero. Hexatron could be found in many places, from the old Motorola Droid Razr phones to the HTC Droid to the PS4 and the movie iRobot. It also has some overlap with Dark Aero, which we spoke about earlier, with the Android Holo UI falling under both Hexatron and Dark Aero. In the modern day, Hexatron can be seen in the designs of some Tesla cars with the all-white seats and large screen that's reminiscent of the aesthetic. Technozen. Still on the subject of tech, let's look at Japan, where you'll find Technozen, or Yuki, which is an aesthetic that focuses on mid to late 2000s tech from the land of the rising sun. It is widely seen as the Japanese interpretation of Frutiger Aero due to its cozy and friendly nature, and its focus on 2000s tech. Technozen has a mix of cold and professional designs that are both cozy and friendly at the same time. This one is a bit more obscure though, considering it was mainly popular in Japan, whereas Frutiger Aero was more of a global thing, or at least a Western thing. The best examples of Technozen are the Wii and DS, along with their original system sounds. Vectorflourish. Last, but most certainly not least, we have Vectorflourish, which is characterized by its heavy use of vector elements and flourishes. If you went to school in the 2010s, you have most definitely seen this, especially because this heavily overlaps with Frutiger Metro, with both aesthetics using flourishes, flowers, and abstract imagery. This one also loosely ties back to Frutiger Aero since it's related via Frutiger Metro. Vectorflourish can best be split into two sub-aesthetics, Vector Bloom and Vector Garden. Vector Bloom tends to have intricate designs that are semi-3D, meanwhile, Vector Garden tends to be easier on the eyes and was the version of Vectorflourish most of us are used to seeing. Vectorflourish was one of the most widespread aesthetics we've talked about today, and was seen commonly in school yearbooks and the show Ever After High. So here we are. Those were 12 aesthetics you probably didn't know were connected to Frutiger Aero. Be sure to let me know which one or ones were your favorite down in the comments. And if I should do a separate video on Frutiger Metro's related aesthetics, as there's so much more I'd love to tell you about. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and stay safe. Bye!